Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're deconstructing the infamous 657 Boulevard mystery. This is a story that has just completely baffled the internet, private investigators, and law enforcement alike. We're going to break down the timeline, the evidence, and a really controversial theory from our source material that literally flips this entire narrative upside down.
So I want you to imagine this for a second. You're sitting in the very room you're in right now, and you get a letter in the mail. And in this letter, a complete stranger is detailing your most intimate, private moments. They know your daily routines, they know exactly what your kids are doing, and they claim to be watching you, constantly. Like, what do? You'd be absolutely terrified, right? You'd be angry, you'd go straight to the police. But what if the police couldn't find anyone? This isn't just some dark hypothetical, guys. This is exactly what happened in the chilling case known as the Watcher.
Part 1. A terrifying beginning. The 657 Boulevard mystery. Picture this. It's 2014, and Derek and Maria Broaddus just bought their absolute dream home for $1.3 million. We're talking a massive, beautiful 6-bedroom house in the super affluent neighborhood of Westfield, New Jersey. But man, the excitement did not last. Set the scene here. It's the night of June 5th. Derek is at the new house, painting all by himself. On his way out, he checks the mail and finds an envelope addressed simply to the new owner. Now, what's incredibly eerie here is that there was never a for sale sign outside. None. So someone had to be paying very, very close attention to know a new family had just bought the property.
So Derek opens the envelope, and the contents are just chilling. The letter welcomes them to 657 Boulevard, but then it quickly takes this super dark turn. It reads, "My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming." The author starts criticizing their renovations and then asks, "Do you know what lies within the walls?" And it's signed simply The Watcher. Obviously, Derek immediately panics. He gets in touch with the previous owners, the Woods family, who actually admit they received one weird letter right before selling, but they just threw it away. The local police, specifically a detective Leonard Lugo, advised Derek to keep the whole thing a strict secret.
The family tries to brush it off, right? Just a weird prank. But then, just a couple of weeks later, on June 18th, the terror totally escalates. Now, context here. During this time, Derek had been showing off some of the renovation work to a neighboring family, just making normal small talk. And during the conversation, the neighbor's wife offhandedly remarked that it was nice they were bringing some young blood to the neighborhood. Hold on to that specific phrase, young blood, because it makes what happens next incredibly disturbing.
When the family checks the mail again, boom, a second letter is waiting. And this brilliantly, or rather terrifyingly, illustrates the stalker's level of access. The Watcher writes, "I am pleased to know your names now and the name of the young blood you have brought to me." The stalker actually asks if the kids will play in the basement, warning, "You won't hear them scream." They boast about knowing the specific layout of the bedrooms and claim, "I can see you through every window and door." Basically, the Watcher was letting them know, "I am here and I see literally everything."
At this point, the nightmare is rapidly unfolding. Derek and Maria, they immediately grab their kids and just abandon the home. They absolutely refuse to move in. Instead, they pour money into private investigators and basically beg the police for help. In total, over the years, they receive 5 of these letters. They even try to sell the house, but obviously word gets around, and no one wants to buy a stalker's playground. Finally, jump to 2017, they manage to rent it out. The new renter brings in high security, 2 large guard dogs, they're completely unafraid, but soon after, a 5th letter arrives. And this one threatens the renter with car accidents, plane crashes, disease, and even the death of their dogs. So the house goes empty once again.
Part 2. Under Suspicion. Let's look at this absolutely baffling police investigation.
So, with a stalker this brazen, police quickly zeroed in on 2 primary suspects. Because, the paranoia was just tearing Derek apart. He's looking at every single neighbor, wondering if they were the ones writing these terrifying notes. On one side, we have the neighbor Michael Langford. He lived right next door and was actually known in the area for sitting and just staring at houses. In fact, a construction worker noted that Langford kept his lawn chair specifically angled toward the Broaddus' home. Okay, weird. On the other side, we have a local gamer. Late one night, police stopped a girl parked outside the empty house. She told them she was just looking at the infamous Watcher house because her boyfriend, who lived on that exact street, played a dark web game where his username was literally The Watcher.
I mean, those are 2 incredibly compelling suspects, right? But here's why they both walked free. The police actually brought Michael Langford in and tested his DNA against the DNA found on the letter's envelope. It was not a match. They even tested his sister's DNA, still no match. So all charges were dropped. And as for the gamer, look,
As suspicious as it is to have The Watcher as a dark web username while living on the exact same street, it's purely circumstantial evidence. Without hard, physical proof, the police had to let him go. The investigation completely stalled out. 0 leads.
Part 3. The story's real twist. It is time to follow the money.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that this is where our narrative shifts from emotional fear to a cold, hard financial deconstruction. Because the source material we are analyzing today suggests that to solve this mystery, we need to stop looking at the creepy neighbors and start looking at this massive number, $1.3 million. Derek and Maria bought a house they literally couldn't even step foot in. They were bleeding money on renovations, property taxes, private investigators, and a second home just to have a place to actually live. They were trapped. Just a massive financial burden with an entirely unsellable asset.
And when you map out the timeline, the source investigator points out some highly suspicious anomalies. Think about it. The previous owners, the Woods family, lived in that house peacefully for 23 years. They never received a single letter until the exact moment the house was being sold. Then Derek and Maria buy it, and suddenly this multi-generational stalker just appears out of nowhere. Between 2014 and 2017, the family ensures this becomes a massive international news story. It gains so much traction that in 2016, the Lifetime Network releases an unauthorized movie about it. Seeing this incredible public interest, the family decides to officially sell the rights to their story.
Which leads us to this staggering figure. Get this, it is estimated that Netflix paid a 7-figure sum, reportedly around $10 million, for the rights to the Watcher story. Now, they ultimately sold the house in 2019, but when you look at the math, a $1.3 million stressful investment eventually yielded an unbelievable return. I mean, not a bad payout for a house you never lived in, right? The source material basically argues that if a stalker lived that close and was that obsessed, they would have been caught. The fact that the letters were so perfectly theatrical and ultimately resulted in a massive media payday, well, that is the entire crux of their theory.
Part 4. Who is the real culprit? The source investigator's conclusion.
The investigator asks one simple question. Who actually benefits from the legend of The Watcher? Now, we are completely impartially reporting on this theory, but you gotta admit it is a fascinating one to consider. So the crucial point is captured perfectly in this quote from the source. Where money is involved, the suspect is often one of your own. The bold theory presented here is that the Watcher never actually existed. The investigator concludes that the family, facing major buyer's remorse or overwhelming financial pressure, may have fabricated the letters themselves as an elaborate exit strategy. Basically, a brilliant scam that resulted in a multi-million-dollar Hollywood bailout. It leaves us with a truly provocative question. Did an omniscient stalker really chase a family out of their dream home? Or did human greed mastermind one of the most brilliant real estate scams in modern history? The source investigator is actually so confident in this financial scam theory that they are offering a $333 giveaway to any viewer who can submit a Google document with a more logical, evidence-based conclusion to this mystery. So what do you think? Look at the evidence, weigh the timeline, follow the money, and decide for yourself. Thanks for joining us on this explainer, and keep questioning everything.